Okay, so welcome to the Friday evening U.S. time Sangha call or Saturday morning here in Thailand. I'm glad to see so many on the call today. Um, we've got several questions. Actually, they're all kind of interrelated. Um, in fact, it's part of the key point about the teaching of the Buddha, and that is that we construct our world or we construct our dukkha through perception. That when we're not perceiving things, we're not creating feelings. And when we perceive things, let us say from sensory input like the eyes and ears, when we hear something or we see something, we want to try to understand it. So we perceive something, we make up kind of a story, can be a short story or a long story. And then that story becomes our understanding, it becomes our reality. And that story then contacts us. And when it touches us, that's where our feelings come from. Our feelings don't come from the actual reality. It comes from what we make of it. Now, uh, if we can begin to understand that, we have some control over it. We can make some changes to our perception. That, in fact, one of the things that we can begin to understand is that there are some things that we can change, but they're normally on the inside. And that the things that we can't change are things like on the outside. Like you can't change a government, though a lot of people try. You can't change other people. That your behavior does not directly influence them. Your behavior goes through their perception, and their perception is what influences them. An example is that if you talk loud, some people will perceive that as you being angry, and other people who perhaps are deaf actually appreciate that you're talking loud. So the reality is that we don't have a whole lot of influence on other people, that we, in fact, do not have much ability to control the outside world. But we have the ability to control our inside world only if we can see it clearly. And that the way to begin to see perception clearly is by noticing the stories that we tell ourselves and base that upon, let us say, a particular piece of criteria, which goes back to the basic teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha taught dukkha, dukkha nirodha, which means to come out of our dukkha, come out of our dissatisfactions. So whenever we find ourselves dissatisfied with something, it's probably because we perceived our way into a story, and then we're dissatisfied with the story that we created rather than reality itself. Uh, Now, an example of that would be uh, the difference between, let us say, winning something on the inside versus winning something on the outside. Somebody asked a question about congratulations for winning. So the first thing to say is that if you can see the story that you're creating on the inside and see that it's unwholesome and you can control that story and change that story, then part of the changing of the story, which means the changing of the dissatisfaction into satisfaction, is actually a good idea to congratulate yourself for having made that internal change. If we can come out of our dukkha, come out of our dissatisfactions, isn't that a marvelous thing? Isn't that the entire teachings of the Buddha is right there? Let's come out of our dissatisfaction. So on the way of our spiritual progress, it would be actually quite valuable to start congratulating yourself. Give yourself that feeling of being successful, being a winner, actually learning to control one's own mind, control one's own feelings, rather than letting the monkey mind just jump around, because it's more than likely jumping from one dissatisfaction to another. That's in fact why the monkey mind, which everybody has, keeps jumping, is because wherever we jump to is dissatisfying. And so we get into the habit of the jumping. So even when we intentionally bring in satisfactory thoughts, when we're practicing correctly, when we are telling ourselves a new story, when we're fabricating a story that's much closer to reality, when we're much closer to reality, then that's less dukkha. Now, another point which we can introduce here is that there is an issue of progress. Now, that issue of progress has to do with a longer term thing, but I want to make sure that you can understand that you can come out of dukkha immediately. You immediately can come out of dukkha, but the question of where to go, actually come out of dukkha, are you going to go into satisfaction, into success, into congratulations for yourself, or are you going to go into nothing? You could say then that the actual ultimate goal is that there's no place to go. There's nothing. Everything is empty. But we can begin to congratulate ourselves when we see that everything is empty before we actually get into being empty. So this is an important point, is that there's actually a two-step process going on. Another way of saying it is that we cannot come from negative up to zero. We have to go from negative and put the effort and the energy to go to positive. And then from the positive is a downhill journey down to nothing, down to emptiness. That we don't come from the nadir to the zero. We always come from the zenith down to the zero. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand. They hear a lot of Buddhism and they think that, oh, I've got to go right to the immediate ultimate goal. Okay. This would be like coming to your house and jumping in the bed. And you run slam into the door because you failed to open the door before you jumped. And that is what I would call bino. What do I mean by bino? Buddhism in name only, because they have these very, very high ideals that they can't reach. And one of the highest ideals that they can't reach is the ideal of the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva is all about, let's fix the world. You can't fix the world. May all beings be happy. You can't control all beings. You don't even know all beings. And you forget to understand that all those beings, they've got their own perception system. And so it's better to not try to fix the world on the outside. The better way to do it is to fix the inside in this two-step process that we're talking about. Is the first step is to get your mind out of the negative into the positive. Because Buddhadasa talks about this. You can see it actually in the suttas, that it's a step-by-step process before we come to the end of perception and the end of feeling. We actually have to learn to control the feelings by learning how to control the stories, which then allow us to control the perception. And so once we have the perception under control, we can then begin to stop the perception. Now, this teaching that I'm giving right now actually comes out of the major teaching of the Buddha called Paticca or dependent origination. I'm sure everybody here has heard about it, a dependent origination. Do we need to go through the details of it? Basically, the details is a 12-step process. But the important key ingredients are that when we start by seeing something on the outside world, when we hear something, when we see something, when we taste something, when we're touched by something, then that kicks off the perception process. And the perception process then is dependent upon our past. An easy example of that is that I say I see a tree. Now, how many people created a tree in their mind when I said I see a tree? Everybody does, right? That's part of the perception. When I say tree, you want to try to make some sense out of it, and so you create a tree. More than likely, the tree that you created is not the tree that I said that I see. In fact, I do this intentionally by seeing a fan palm, because fan palms are actually quite rare. The only place I've ever seen them in all the travels that I've done is one in a park in Sri Lanka, and number two is here in my yard. I've seen pictures of them and photos, but they're kind of unusual. So, anybody here, when I said I see a tree, did they think of a pan palm? Probably not, because it's not part of your, let us say, pile of goo. All kinds of other trees are in your pile of goo. This pile of goo that I'm talking about is all the stuff that you've perceived before, processed before, and stored away in the form of memory. And so, Katsumaru, you have a question? Please ask it. Sending messages is distracting. I have to go look and I can't read it. So do you have a question? Yes.
No, I was just making a comment that unless you were looking at the word tree, we definitely did not picture.
I didn't catch that. Mikey, can you help me? Did you hear what he said?
It was just that when you said what I visualized was the word tree, T-R-E-E in my head. So unless you were looking at the word, we surely didn't visualize this.
What about
Okay.
the font? The font of the text tree might be different. I might have my font in Gothic text or in some other type of text. Will not be the same.
Mm-hmm. Actually, there's a lot of different uses for the word tree. For instance, in old computer science, we spoke of a binary tree. That in fact, on the PC, the directory structure is technically in mathematics a tree. And each folder within a directory are branches for that tree. So there's a lot of different ways of using the word tree. But when I say I see a tree and I'm looking out in the yard, most people are going to have a plant. rather than a mathematical concept in their mind. So we create our reality. This is an important point to recognize, is that we create our reality, and by doing so, actually the more skilled we become at seeing our reality, the way that we're creating it and constructing it, two things can happen. One is the clearer you can actually see reality rather than your perception of reality. And number two, you can begin to see how other people create their reality also. So somebody asked me about winning, and this is an important point to bring in here, is that when you see someone else win, then they naturally want to be congratulated for it. That in fact, there's a classical story in the description of mudita, which is part of the metta system called the Brahma Viharas. So in mudita, they have the story that you are creating with some, competing with someone for the job of the manager. Your manager has gotten a promotion, and you're hoping that he and his bosses are going to promote you to become the manager, and there's someone else on your team who is hoping for the same thing. And so somehow or another, you secretly, each other, become in competition with one another for the job. And the situation is that he wins and you lose. Now, the normal way that people will behave is, I wanted that job and he got it and I didn't. Therefore, I am jealous of him. That's my perception process. He got it and I didn't. If we have that system going, then that's going to affect the relationship that we have with this guy. In fact, we might continue to compete with him. Another way of saying it is that some people get into competing with all kinds of people for no reason at all. That we get into the habit of competing. We play the games of one-upmanship and who wins and all of this kind of stuff. So in this case that we're talking about, that's downright dangerous for you to be in competition with your new boss, being jealous of him. So the correct way of handling it is to congratulate him sincerely, maybe even take the entire team out for lunch to congratulate him, and then you become his best friend in the job. If you can become friends with the guy that you were competing with, your job and his job will be a whole lot easier, and your job will be much more secure. Now, how do we know this? We know that because you already know your own mind that you would rather compete for the job and win than compete with the job and lose. You also know that other people think the same way. And so that other guy won the contest. He became the boss. He doesn't want you to continue to compete with him, pointing out all of his faults, etc. So it's better for you to congratulate him on being that new boss. Now, you can congratulate other people when they win. So this is one of the places where you could say that on the outside world, if you've got a choice between being jealous or being congratulatory, it's always better to be congratulatory, because if you're jealous of him, you're probably going to not just have dukkha yourself on your own mind, you're trying to give him dukkha also. Dukkha, 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 and more dukkha. But if you can congratulate him, then that takes and removes the dukkha from your own mind, and it also reduces and removes the dukkha in his. Because if you were competing with him and then he got the job, more than likely, if you have even a hint of competition left over, he's going to feel that and he's going to be competitive back with you. So if you can join him and be friends with him, he will more than likely then change from his perception of competition into the perception of congratulations and friendship. So, in the sense of congratulations, yes, congratulate other people on the outside for winning. But how about congratulating yourself for winning is setting yourself up for the next time you lose? That congratulations and winning and losing are temporary things. So it's better to congratulate yourself a little bit, but then when other people praise you or rebel or revile you, this is what the Buddha says for the monks, is that when other people revile you, there's no elation or dejection of the heart. And when people revere you, there is no elation or dejection of the heart on that account. That you already have control of your heart so that you can have elation and rejection or dejection on your own account, depending upon what's on your own mind. So when people revile you or revere you, hasn't that been happening your whole life? I mean, when you were in high school, you got congratulated. When you were in high school, you got punished. You got reviled. Knowing that, it's better to have the attitude of, well, I've been there, done that. That's happened before. I got congratulated and I felt good, but it didn't last. I felt criticized and reviled and punished, but it didn't last. So why now, when I'm being criticized or reviled or revered and congratulated, why should I go up and down with the congratulations and the and have elation of the heart, or when I'm reviled, have dejection of the heart? Better to learn to have a steady state. Coming back to that neutral position. This is the right way to handle it. So if you're out there posting on Reddit and somebody tells you that you're full of trash, there's no reason to post back to them. You know, just go someplace else or do something else. You don't need that. So this is the way that we would handle then that winning and losing, is that we're going to take a different approach between whether it's on the inside or the outside. That when, for instance, when you see that you have dukkha in your mind, the right thing to do at that point is what? What, Mickey? What do you do when you see the dukkha in your own mind?
I see you.
Aha, I see you, Mr. Dukkha. In other words, you begin to congratulate yourself for seeing your own dukkha. Now, why would one do that? The answer is that, well, you've got a couple of choices there. Are you going to deject your own heart? Are you going to feel bad? Are you going to give yourself more dukkha because you see the unwholesome thought? Are you going to lift yourself out of it? So when you see the dukkha in your own mind, that's time to congratulate yourself. And when you've made the change out of the unwholesome into the wholesome over and over and over again, and you can see that you can do that, that's the time to congratulate yourself. And you continue to congratulate yourself up until the time when it doesn't matter so much anymore. Brian, you got a question?
I don't have a question. I was just commenting on the fact that, the ICU Mara thing works.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see you.
No, I like. Okay,
If
yeah.
we can
I don't
learn
really
to
have much else to say.
all right, when we see what's going on, we can, in fact, congratulate ourselves because we're coming out of the unwholesome merely by seeing it. That the dukkha that really is the dukkha that you can't see. Or if you can see it, the worst thing that we can do is to blame someone else or blame the outside world. An example is that you get a letter in the mail from the IRS or some government agency saying that you're going to be audited. How do you feel? Well, that's up to you. Hot dog, I made it on the IRS hit list. Whoa, is one option. Or, oh no, they're going to hell to pay. That's another option. It's your choice. It's better in that case to just go to zero. We'll take care of that later. I don't have to worry about it right now. There's nothing to it. Everything is all right. Everything is fine. So we always then have two choices when we see the dukkha. One is to come out of it with congratulations, and the other one is to come out of it with nothing at all. But most people can't come out of it with nothing at all. In fact, all the beginners of Buddhism can't come out with nothing at all. We have to go through that stage of going into the positive. And so this is the way that it's best to be taught, is to get yourself out of your negativity by going to positive. And when the positivity rots away, it goes to nothing, not back into dukkha. But this is the practice that we pay. This is the way that we work with it. So on the outside world, if something goes wrong, nothing to say. If somebody gets a win and they're around you, you can congratulate them for their win. But on the inside, we want to go through this two-step process of first seeing it and liking it, congratulating ourselves for it, and then let that melt into nothing. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Yeah, so I don't know if I might have missed the point, but I was thinking about when there's a company and say there's new management. Sometimes it represents an ideological difference. So there's new manager in my community. He's going to change the budget. He's going to fire people or change the way business is done, and it's going to people are going to disagree about it. He said he wasn't the right person, and But like I said, maybe I missed the point. But that's what I was thinking when I started thinking about it.
All right. Well, you don't own that company. You don't run the company. In this case, you're not the new boss, which means that you don't have a lot of influence on it. What you do have an influence on is to either put up with it or walk out on it. That the Buddha was actually quite big on that particular point. So let's go into that a bit of detail. First off, there's an injunction about monks in the time of the Buddha that if they are in a place that has a famine, if there's a place that they have pestilence, if there's a place where there is conflict and war, if there is a place where there is a flood, then in all of those cases, the right thing that the Buddha says is for the monks to pick up their bowl and their bag and their sangati and take a hike, go someplace else. Do not stay in a war zone. Do not stay around where there's conflict. There's also another injunction someplace else that we even see this in more modern times when there's a battle but especially like the Civil War was a spectator sport in the United States. Huge crowds would come just to watch the North and the South fight. The same thing would be true way back into ancient times, that it was entertainment to go watch a war. Well, isn't it pretty dangerous with all those arrows and spears flying? They may fly one in your direction. It's better to stay away from conflict. So that would be true even on the workforce. If there is conflict because of new management and new rules and new policies, the best thing to do is to walk out, to either walk out of the room or walk out of the job, but for sure to get away from it. You can also see that that's happening today. I just heard that a huge number, like tens of thousands up into the millions of people, are leaving China. We also have heard that when the war was starting off in Ukraine, that millions of people left Ukraine and millions more left Russia. That's the right thing to do. Get out. Don't hang around when there's conflict. There's no reason to go up to congratulate the winner in that kind of conflict, because the loser's probably going to shoot you in the back in the sense of trying to shoot the winner and missed and hit you instead. Stay away from conflict. Especially don't create any conflict. Congratulate the winner, say, I'm really happy to have you on staff, and then walk away while the other people who are fussing and fighting can have their say. But don't go around telling those people who are fussing and fighting about the new boss to shut up, because they'll put you on his side and then they'll start fussing and fighting about you. The best thing to do is to stay out. Stay out of conflict. Stay away from it. Take a hike. There's an old saying that I heard long ago. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. How many of you have heard that one? All right. There's an option to it. When the tough get going, the bard go drinking. How many of you have heard that part of it? How about the third part is that when the going gets tough, the Buddha takes a hike. Walk out. Stay out of tough situations. You can't fix it. All you can do is get messed up in it, creating your own dukkha. If you don't like something, get away from it. I would also say that about a job, that the first thing, if somebody doesn't like the job that they have, the first thing that they need to do is to clean out their mind, get themselves into a good state over and over and over again, and practice that very, very well, so that when you come back to the job, you can come back to the job and do it happily. Only after you can do the job happily should you start making decisions about whether you're going to quit or not, based upon whether the job is unwholesome. For instance, if you have a good, happy disposition, but you're in a job where there's a lot of conflict, for instance, the union and the management are having it in turmoil, best thing to do is go on vacation, get away from that conflict, or quit the job. Don't stay around conflict. That's the way that the Buddha would teach, is to stay away from outside conflict. Also, stay away from places that are scarce. When people are in, let us say, lack, want, for instance, in some places, the management will not support the people at all on any level. And everybody's dissatisfied and grumbling because the management is not supporting them, as if it were let us say, a famine, then that's the right time to leave that place. There's really, really good reasons to leave a job, but one of them is not because you don't like it, because you don't like the work you're doing, because that's something that you're doing on the inside of the mind. So get yourself into the state of liking so that you can go and like the job, and then there may be some reasons why you would quit at a later time. So let's go back and revisit perception for just a bit. All of this has to do with perception. One is the perception on the inside, I don't like the job, and the other one is the perception of what's happening on the outside and the stories that you're telling about that. So the question is, can you learn to control the stories that you tell yourself? Because the stories that you tell yourself are going to determine the way you feel. And if the stories that you tell yourself is that everything is okay, everything is fine, there's no problems, there's no worries with that job, then you'll get along just fine with that new boss or with the new management system. It's not your problem. Your problem is to get your mind in really, really good state. And if you can get your mind into a really, really good state, then maybe the best thing to do is to not just quit that job, but to quit working altogether and go sit in the what? Go sit down and do nothing for the next 10 or 20 years. Get used to actually doing nothing. Because almost all the stuff that you're doing is because you want something. And when you don't want anything, there's very little doing left. And so I can introduce now the 4 kinds of karma. I know that they normally teach 2 kinds of karma. Hinduism is full of 2 kinds of karma. Christianity has 3. But it's the third one that the Christianity has is not the same as one of the 4 that the Buddha has. So let's go over that quickly. All right. The first kind of karma is you get good results from good action. So the word karma, actually, when people use the word karma, they almost always misuse it. So I'll add the words karma phala or karma vipaka. The word vipaka actually means result, and the word phala actually means fruit. So the fruit of one's labor, the result of your actions. And so if you do a good action, the result will be good. But almost always the result that we get, and whether we like it or not, whether it's good or not, then influences the action itself. For instance, when you buy a stock on the stock market, you don't know whether that was a good action or a bad action until the stock goes up or down. So often we do not know about whether an action is going to be good or not. It depends upon the results. But sometimes you can see, because we understand society the way that it is being jealous of your boss is a bad action, is going to for sure get bad results. And congratulating your new boss for sure is going to be much closer to being a good action that's going to get you good results. So those are the 2 kinds of karma. The third kind that Christianity is you do good, you get good results. You do bad, you get bad results. And then the third one is you do bad, you can get forgiven for it, so that you can go do it again and get forgiven again. Then you go do it a 4th time and you get it forgiven the 4th time. In other words, the Christian way to do it is to stay in the bad and get forgiveness for it, because that's better than doing good. Because doing good often seems like a lot of work. So let's just go do bad and get forgiven. But that's not the teaching of the Buddha at all. The Buddha teaches a third kind of karma that has a third kind of result, is everything is mixed. Almost all action is not either good nor bad. It's a mixture. An example of that would be people who become medical doctors. Some of them do it with the first primary intention of getting rich, and the second one is to heal people. And other doctors become healers first and then get rich second. But in both cases, it's mixed karma. They do good to help people, and then they do bad to get rich. Almost all of your behavior is a mixed bag, which always means you get a mixed bag of results. Almost all behavior is a mixed bag. There is very little. Alexander, got a question for you. Can you name me one action that's totally good? 100% without a doubt good. How about giving to the poor? That could be quite difficult. There was a story on television years ago called The Millionaire, where this John Bears Pertipton, on every story, every week, would give somebody $1 million, and then the whole rest of the plot was to show how that ruined that person's life. So often giving, generosity, is a mixed bag. We don't know what the results are going to be. And often the results are going to be a mixed bag. So, Alex, do you know anything that's absolutely without a doubt bad? How about killing someone? Well, if you think about it, at least now they're at peace and you're in trouble. Mixed bag. So all action is either mixed, very little action. Sometimes it's good with good results. Sometimes it's bad with bad results. But if you can understand that third kind of karma, if everything is a mixed bag, now we can go and perhaps begin to understand the fourth kind of karma. And the fourth kind of karma is when it is neither good nor bad and leads to no results, either good nor bad. But it does lead to the end of action. In other words, if all of the actions that you take have no consequences at all, you're less likely to go acting anymore. In almost all of the actions that you take, you're trying to get something good out of it, and you wind up in a bunch of crap instead. That's the mixed bag. And when you begin to start living your life to where you're not out there doing good and you're not out there doing bad, you're not doing anything at all. So let me give you an example of that. Is that in Thailand, they have a concept called Tham Bun. Tham Bun means doing good. And part of Tham Bun is Sai Bat. Sai Bat means putting or placing into the bowl. In Lao language, they use the term tak bat, and tak means putting it in the bowl or throwing it into the bowl or dropping it into the bowl. But both of them have the quality of making merit, Tham Bun. Making merit and Tham Bun are actually two very good intertranslations. Well, the point would be that if you put something in the monk's bowl right now, the benefit of your joy is right now and immediately, and it's not going to have any results later. But the people in Thailand, just like the people in Christianity in the West, are taught if you put money in that offering plate, you're actually building up your mansion in heaven. I used to tease my grandmother about that. Oh, well, you just put another plank in the floorboard of your heaven. And she would write a big check to the church. But the problem is that if you give a lot of money to the church, isn't the preacher going to start putting his hand in that plate? Isn't that actually mixed action now? How can, when you give money to the church, can you actually be 100% guaranteed that it's going to be good action? You don't know that. And so the way to look at it then is that if you're doing something, do it for the immediate results. Right here, right now, you do an action and you get immediate results. For instance, Alex, look at yeah, see, I'm smiling at you. Look at you, smile right back. Okay, that's immediate, right then and there. That's the whole point that I'm making here. There's no store and forward, comma. You either get the results right here and right now, or you don't. The other one is that when you begin to not want anything anymore, if your mind is noble and you're in a state of satisfaction, then you're highly unlikely to go kill somebody to get it. You're highly unlikely to go rob somebody to get what you want when you don't want anything. So when you come out of your wanting, come out of your greed, come out of your ill will, then you're not harming anyone anymore, but you're also not doing a lot of actions. For instance, the action of robbing somebody is a lot of work. The action of cheating on your income tax is a lot of work. Filling out the income tax correctly, no work to it. But cheating on it takes a lot of work. And so when we stop our cheating and our fussing and our fighting, we don't have so much work to do anymore. So the fourth kind of karma, even at a beginner's or a regular level, is that we stop trying to get benefits from what we're doing and just start enjoying what we're doing right now and forget about the future. And also our actions when we're not harming other people, they're not going to try to harm us back. And so we are doing action that's neither good nor bad, neither bright nor dark. But in living our life like that, we begin to have a whole lot less actions. Now, on the noble side of it, when we're actually to that point where there is no good or bad, then it's impossible to do good or to do bad. So why do anything at all? This is why the monks wind up having a really, really easy life, because they've got no place to go and nothing to do except sit there and watch their mind happily. So these are the four kinds of karma. And if you can remember that, always go for the fourth kind of karma. Because anytime you try to do something good or you're intentionally doing something bad, recognize that that's probably going to be a mixed bag. And when you see that, you're less likely to take more actions. That you can gain your joy immediately. Santiago, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I do. When do you decide to take a mixed result decision? Is there ever a time when you can, when you should, or decide to take a mixed bag, decision, basically?
It depends upon how we define it. But the right answer is always the middle path, the middle way. To recognize that, in fact, everything has good and bad mixture. And so maybe the best thing to do is to nothing at all. Going back to that question about conflict at the office, the right thing to do is take a hike. Don't stay there, because if you stay there, you're likely to open your mouth. The same thing would be true about having an argument with the wife. The right thing to do is to shut your mouth. But most of the guys can't do that. And so the right thing to do in the beginning is just take a hike. When the wife starts to yell, when she's fussing, when she's fighting, you'll say, I'll be right back. Got to go to the toilet. I'm full of shit. I got to take a dump. And then you stay in there long enough to let her simmer down. May take a while. Long, cold shower, maybe. But to stay out of it. And if you come back and she's still fussing and fighting, go take out the garbage. But get out. Go away. Why? Because the likelihood is if you sit there and listen to what she has to say, you're likely to open your face and say something that's a mixed bag. So, Santiago, that's the answer to your question. Is maybe the best thing to do when your choice is to do a mixed bag is to still do nothing at all. Take a hike. Get out of it.
But if one does make a decision and one has skillful intention in doing a decision, then if the result, does not provide...
Often you don't know what the results are going to be, do you? That's what you already
but
covered. You don't know what the results are going to be by that action.
you should be unmoved either way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unmoved. So you just make the decision and be unmoved.
So this would actually introduce the 4 imponderables. And one of the 4 imponderables that we talk about now is you don't know the result of an action that you do now. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know anything about happens in the future. You don't know about rebirth. You don't know about heavens. You don't know about hells. You don't know about the IRS. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. All you can do is to see what's happening right now. And so be careful of the actions that you're taking now, because they may not have any value to them. In fact, it may backfire. So, Andrew, do you have anything to say? Any questions?
It's interesting what you say. Like it all comes back down to fabrication for me, which is my original thing that I was sort of talking about. It's the way it's a skillful way of fabricating, I guess, to fabricate your world in a way that gives you the best outcome in terms of things.
Okay. All right. You just
say,
changed the definition of the word fabricate. Before we were talking about fabrication, which happens in the mind, perception, but now you're getting into fabrication in the sense of action.
But I mean, I also mean fabrication of the mind as well, because your actions start with a perception, right?
Yep, that's right. But they don't necessarily end. You can change your perception before you act.
Okay. So I'll just so what my train of thought was like, say like what Santiago is saying is that, like, sometimes you have to sort of make a choice, I guess. Like, you have to weigh it up, which is going to be like more beneficial, what's going to what's going to lead to the most suffering and what's not, sort of thing. Like, for instance, in my job that I do, right, I'm a disability support worker, so part of my job is to like make the clients that feel empowered and stuff like that, and give them sort of a sense of self-worth in a way, like but in a way that's a mixed bag as well, because like that's also building up their ego and stuff like that. So do you understand what I mean?
Yes. You could turn him into a megalomaniac You'll
Yeah,
have
yeah.
another Donald Trump on your hands if you don't handle your job empowerment correctly.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So like it's the way that you go about doing these things. Like you've got to do it in a way that's like I don't know, the way you perceive the situation has to be like you have to see the subtleties of it. Like you have to
Yes.
see that there's like
Over and over, every time that anything happens, it's a brand new right now. Let's pay attention to what's happening now.
Mm.
To see how it goes means to watch it go so that you can make subtle changes in the moment.
Yeah, I like the word skillful. Like it's you could become kind of skillful at navigating your way through life if you are like in a job where you do enjoy and it is beneficial. Everything's a mixed bag, obviously. Like you want to be able to be skillful about the choices that you make and the way that you perceive the situations, and so
Actually, it's a mixed bag. Let me give you some other examples of how it's a mixed bag. For one, is that social workers and psychologists are often quite jealous of psychiatrists because the psychiatrists will give prescription medicines and still don't know a thing about the person. All they've got is a diagnostic code.
mm,
But the social workers and the psychologists are working with these people. And so they would be better at giving medicines, but they're prevented by law from giving medicine. So that's one little example. Also, another example could be is that one social worker is jealous of other social workers, and now you've got a bad situation inside, the profession itself. Well, never mind it, whether you've seen your first client today or not. The whole office space is in turmoil. So
absolutely.
you're probably aware of that.
Yeah,
Been there,
absolutely.
done
Yeah,
that.
definitely. You see it everywhere. Yeah, yeah. So you got to be skillful about it. But like, I mean, knowledge of the Dharma helps so much in that. To
Yes, it
not.
does.
Mm.
I can't think of any case where Dhamma doesn't work. That in fact, that's one of the best definitions. There's another word in the Pali called idiapapajayata, which has to do with everything is in flux, everything is in turmoil, and any and everything can affect any and everything else. Sometimes that's called the butterfly effect. You don't know what's going to happen because things are so complex, far too complex for the human mind to really get to know exactly what is going to happen. That's why it's an imponderable. We don't know the results of our actions. But you're talking about skillfulness. We have to make sure that part of skillfulness has to do with the skill of being able to tell the truth and get it to be acceptable, rather than the kind of skillful means would be to tell somebody a lie in order to get them to do something good.
Yep. That's why I like that's why I like the word fabrication, because fabrication is also in the common sense used as a word for lying as well. So you can see when you're fabricating
Okay.
more, you can
Mm-hmm.
when you're constructing more, you're getting further away from the truth, right?
Exactly. So that
Yeah.
that word fabrication's got a lot of different definitions in English.
Mm.
So next, Ben, you got any comments?
It no, it all makes sense. It's all relevant. Yeah, no. I'm sort of trying to stop. Don't know how to explain it. No, it's okay. Everything's okay. Yeah.
Yes, everything is fine.
Yeah.
Until you use the word trying. I'm trying.
Yeah.
do something that's easy enough to actually just do. Alexander. Go, man. What's up? Tell me about it.
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Delivering food, listening to this nice talk.
All right. How about you, Eric?
I'm not getting my head around this. It's going to take a visit to Wikipedia, I'm afraid.
Going to take a what?
A visit to Wikipedia.
Maybe
I have
better
to.
thing to do is to review this video. It's right. It's going to be posted right after we finish talking. Listen to it again. I'm not sure that Wikipedia is going to be of much value because that was written by people who were as ignorant as the people out in the world that we're getting away from.
Oh, I was hoping that this was going to be something that would be reflected easily in what I'd find there, but I can understand that. Yeah, it's unlikely.
Actually, it's very easy to understand. Let me give it to you in really simple terms. Don't worry, be happy.
Yes, that part I understand. No, it's the four. You know, I think the four different aspects in detail. You know, it's.
Oh, you mean the four kinds of karma? That
Yeah.
comes out of Sutta number 56 in the Majjhima Nikaya, the dog duty aesthetic. There's actually 4 or 5 places where it's listed. And the most important quality of it is that karma that is neither bright nor dark and giving neither bright nor dark results puts us in a state of far less action. It comes to the end of action. We stop doing things because most of the time we were doing things was to get something out of it or to avoid getting caught doing it.
So I think the idea of making it, you know, having it requires action. Making an action that's neither dark nor bright. That's beyond my pay grade at this moment.
All right. Call me and we'll discuss it again.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Thank you.
Ivan, do you have anything to say?
Not much really. I was just agreeing with everything. Really
How
not
about
much.
you, Dhammadas? You got anything other than a thumbs up?
Just thank you.
All right. Mikey, why don't you take it from here?
Yes, thank you all for being here today. So happy to see so many good friends. If you guys haven't yet, go ahead and visit the OpenSanghaFoundation.org website. And even if you have visited, pay it another visit. We've been cleaning it up, fixing some bugs, making it a little bit nicer to use and easier to navigate. And pretty soon here, we're going to be promoting the website more and more to have more friends join. And the more we have people in our Sangha test it and use it and play with it, the easier it is for us to make little improvements here and there. So yes, thank you so much, Dhammarato, for this talk. It's been very lovely.
Yes. I got to congratulate him, folks. Mikey has done such a marvelous job. He's gotten some really good ideas. One of the things that we put in there that's really interesting, I think quite spiff, is that we've got backgrounds that are randomized. And we got about 10 or 20 random backgrounds. We also have little icons in the corner. We got 170 of those, and everything is random. So every time you go back to the same page, it has a different look and feel to it. A lot of beautification has been put into it. Also, he's been quite good at getting the cell phone part of it so that it doesn't go off screen and makes it hard to read. Everything is really easy to read. So I
Do you have
really
an
think,
idea?
go ahead.
I've got a question. Do you have any idea when we'll stop using Skype for this conference call?
Not yet. No, let us say no dates, no plans, just an idea.
Oh, I
Because
see. Okay.
Skype has some limitations, but it's got features that we haven't put into the website yet. An
Okay,
example would be that if you send somebody a message in Skype, then they may or may not ever see it. But in the website, that if somebody hasn't seen a message within 24 hours, we'll send them an email so that they can get their messages like that. But instant notifications is very good, and we haven't gotten the instant notifications going. That the only notifications that we have is when you get it from the email. So it'll be 24 hours before you get a notification that you've got a message. And it
Okay,
would be
thanks for
good if we could
clarification.
get some instant messages going for the website. I think people would use the website a whole lot more if they had instant messages pop up the way that they do in Skype. But other than that, it's a whole lot more robust than Skype.
Okay, I just felt like I was behind the curve a little. I didn't want to. I want to get a sense of when that would happen. So, like you say, no date yet. Thank you.
No date yet. It's got to be perfect before it's released. So you can plan on something between, let us say, 2050 and 2100. After we're dead, it'll do it. No, I'm just joking. No plans, though. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. This has been a nice talk. I really have enjoyed having you all, my friends. So I highly recommend that you get in touch with each other, that you message each other either on the website or on Skype. Make friends. You'd be surprised at how enjoyable it is to have Dhamma friends who see things the way that you do in the sense of the Dhamma. Congratulate each other for the Dhamma, all of that kind of stuff. No fussing and fighting.
Also, I wanted to say, Alexander wrote a blog post recently about Samasankappa and attitude. So go check that out on the website. It's a really good read.
Excellent. Congratulations, Alexander. That was a really excellent post. You wrote that yourself, huh?
Thank you both so much. It's a lot of teachings, a lot of listening.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.